It's not anything to be ashamed of to say, well, it kind of looks like that structure's worked quite well for the entire duration of mankind, and so maybe we mess with it at our peril.
You're hearing about family values from the childless and unmarried. Don't follow them.
The women have to stop blaming men for their sense of malaise or misery.
I didn't create you people to kill and torture and rape each other. I created you to be good to each other. I love the God who had a flood.
Alright, so this video is actually a continuation of the Carnal's Guide to Consent, because a female listener decided to ask me, how do I know who's the one? Well, I don't know how to tell you who the one is. The best I can do is tell you how to find a good guy. How to identify who a good guy is. So this is a continuation of that, and I've decided to include a few other videos, a few other clips to give us some sounding boards on. Because that's a bigger topic than I'm ready to chew on my own. But it is a discussion that needs to be had, because a lot of women don't know how to pick a good guy. They don't know what the hell a good guy looks like. They don't know what a good guy behaves like, because nice guys can be shit too. So nice isn't gonna cut it, and falling for a gym rat isn't exactly an attractive option either. So the topic of this video is how to find a good man, which is a discussion we need to have. I'm going to break this up into two parts. The first part that we're going to delve into is women looking for a good person, or girls looking for a good man to date or to hopefully look to marry up until they finish high school. This advice is almost exclusively for women who are not out of high school yet. They haven't hit the real world. They're still figuring things out, but they're still ready to date. So that's where we're going to start, and you're going to figure out why I'm going back a little bit in the dating timeline, because this might be important to some of you. Some of you might not be on the older side. You might not be in the 20s or 30s or 40s. No, I'm going to reach out to the younger audience. If you're in high school, I need to talk to you too. So let's get started and let's jump into our first clip.
A very large number of my clinical clients, but also young men I've talked to in general, are absolutely terrified of women because they're terrified of being rejected. And the terror exists in precise proportion to the attraction to the woman, which is a horrible paradoxical situation to be in. It's often why men make such fools of themselves in front of women that they're attracted to. It's because, first of all, they don't see the woman that they're attracted to. Because what the hell do they know about her? They don't see her as an individual. They see her as the manifestation of a judgmental ideal. And then it's only in establishing the relationship with the actual woman that they can start differentiating between the judgmental ideal and the actual individual woman. And that also requires a sacrifice. And the sacrifice is, you never can have an ideal woman. So to have a relationship with any woman, you have to sacrifice the relationship with the ideal woman. And you have to see the individual woman and separate her from the ideal.
Now, I like what Jordan is saying here about young men in particular being afraid of being terrified of women in proportion to the amount that they are attracted to the woman. But here's the difference. I'm going to try to explain to you as ladies why in the earlier stages in life that is an indication of a good man. Because what you have to understand is that you do, in a very real sense, represent a judgmental ideal. But you also have to understand is that this judgmental ideal represents the individual male's current status in life. The judgmental ideal is how well does this man, this young man, wish to provide for you? How well does this man wish to entertain you, make you laugh, give you a good time, show you, take you to places you want to go, even when they are freshmen, sophomores, juniors, they're going to be at least internally, subconsciously aware of how much or how little they're going to be able to take you out, whether or not they can afford prom. These are things that men at least subconsciously think about with a woman that they are genuinely and truly interested in. Now, another thing about this judgmental ideal is the reason that it's put up in front of there is because there's something that he wants from you other than sex. There is a fantasy involved. And the fantasy involved has to do very much with good things, primarily. It's nothing toxic. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's how does he view this woman potentially as a mate, as a partner, as a mother, as a wife? All of that is there. And the reason you know you have a good man, or a worthy prospect, we will call him, is if that fear is there. When you are approached by a young man in high school or in the younger stages in life, it should be extremely awkward. It should be a little hesitant, a little dicey, because let's face it, you're waking up to the powers of procreation, and yet you have no responsibility for them. So you're going to be in limbo for a little bit. So picking out what a good man looks like in high school is easier because they haven't pushed beyond that facade yet. They haven't pushed beyond this representation, which you'll have to decipher later when you haven't, how do I say this? When you haven't picked a good man early on in life, it makes it harder to pick out who the good ones really are. We're going to go over that in the next clip. But this is why what Jordan says is true, but there is a positive spin to it. There is a reason why young men in particular are terrified of women and why it's good. And as a young woman, it behooves you to look for that fear in a young man. If you're in high school and you're looking at a young man and he's too confident, he acts like he has it all, he acts like you should be his, and I understand that confidence is sexy. It is. And that's natural. That's hardwired into pretty much both of the sexes. We find confidence to be extremely sexy because, well, you have to be confident to get most things done. Confidence we see as a sign of competence, and that's what draws us to one another. But if a young man is too confident, if he's too cocky, if he's got you all figured out, run. And that's basically where we're going to leave off with this. You need to understand that a young man, before he leaves high school, is going to have that natural hesitation because he has certain biological expectations that he's not living up to or that he's trying to live up to. And that's the first part of picking a good man if you are in the age ranges of high school. On to the next part. This is from the sage Gavin. Have a nice listen to this one.
Now, I realize there are women who waited too long, they didn't get proposed to, or they let their stupid career get in the way. My heart goes out to you. But this is exactly what I'm trying to prevent. Your ovaries are officially dying after 30. That means you need to start getting serious about who you date at 25. No more musicians or comedians, ladies. They cheat.
Yeah, that last talk we had about overconfidence in the last section, that sort of applies here too. Here's the problem. After high school, when young men get into the real world and they've gone through a few of you lasses and they've started to understand that there is a real woman behind their expectations and their desires and their wants, they start focusing on themselves a lot more. I know, shocker, how who would have thought that this could possibly backfire if you don't snag a good one early? Yeah, that's a thing. And you should snag one early. I highly encourage you to snag one early. But here's what happens. We wisen up. We get smart. We understand that there's a woman behind the facade of what we expect from a woman. And that's hard for women to decipher between which ones are cocky, confident, and, grown up, and the ones who are cocky, confident, and not grown up. This causes quite a dilemma, and unfortunately, and here's I'm going to tread carefully here, because my wife is in a bunch of Facebook groups, and she's in a few mom groups in particular, and I wish I could tell you something as simple as wait for the commitment, bozo. Don't go all in until you know he's willing to invest to commit to you. Unfortunately, I'm privy to information from these mom groups where there are men who, even despite being married, will leave their wives once they tell them that they're pregnant. This does happen, and it is a real thing. And it's something that really boggles my mind. So I'm going to do my best to guide you in such a way to understand what kind of men you should be committing, what kind of man you should be committing to, despite the fact that they appear to be giving you a commitment. And so you have men who have removed from themselves the natural expectation of who they should be for a woman. They've already thrown that out. So now you have to look for other clues as to what kind of qualities in a man you should be looking for. So what my best recommendation is to look for a man who's willing to... It's not just commitment. Commitment's passive. Commitment's very lazy, especially if you're in the beginning romantic stages. Commitment's easy. How you tell if a man is going to stay, if a man is worth the investment, if a man is worth staying at home for or building a life with. First of all, when you first start dating this man, or when you first start meeting him, my advice is that you know your worth. In other words, if there's a particular individual that you find that you take a liking to, you're going to have to wait for him to come to you. And that's not me being harsh, it's me being very realistic. You have to make it clear that he has to make you a priority. Don't be make sure he's the one asking you on the date, not you asking him. And the reason why is because I'm ashamed that I have to say this. As a woman who values yourself, and you should value yourself. I hope that that's abundant and clear as I'm giving this rant. As a woman of value who's seeking to settle down with a good mate, he has to show that he is seeking to put value in your time and energy. Wait for the douchebag to ask you on a date. Don't just do the whole hanging out thing. You're not a kid anymore. You're not Netflix and chill is for the lame. That's Tinder status easy fuck. Don't do it. also that make him work for it. You have to reignite that old fear of the ideal woman. You have to invoke that image. You have to make that real again for him. You have to make yourself worth fighting for. And that means waiting for them to come to you in a manner that is, well, pleasant? Is that the word I'm looking for? Because you don't want to play hard to get. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is, my God, this is difficult. This is difficult advice, because there's a fine balance between playing hard to get and acknowledging whether or not he is making you a priority. That's where the nuance lies. And once you've established that he's making you a priority, and I mean this sincerely, making you a priority means not just you following him on his interest, because a lot of women like to do that with guys that they're interested with. Don't do that. For God's sakes, don't do it. You are just, how do I put this? You're putting yourself on a plate and just handing it over. Don't do it. Once you make yourself available in that manner, all he's going to see is a free meal. And as a man, I'm not ashamed to reveal that dark secret. We know when you're being obvious and when you're attracted to us, especially when we get older. So if you're just going to pretend that, you're in with our interests, we're going to take it as an invitation to sleep with you. And while that's fun, and I fully endorse it, that's not going to help you get a man who's going to stick around. So that's the number one thing you should be looking for. Number two that you should be looking for when seeking a good man after the phase of high school is you need to make sure that the man knows you rather than owns you. And this is a biblical concept. I'm not ashamed to go biblical on you, because God knows we need Jesus now. The reason that you need a man who knows you, and the reason why that's a biblical term, is because to know someone means to, A, be invested in them, and be sincerely invested in their time, their energy, their emotional labor, their personage, and to invest in them as that person. The person who owns you is the man who pays the bills, puts the roof over the head. He doesn't really demand much of you, but he's not really doing anything with you. He's not really, how do I say, he's not really helping you as a woman grow in any particular direction. And that's something that someone you should be serious with will do. A man who wants to invest in you will try to promote your talents, your abilities, your skills. He will try to utilize these things and help you grow, especially if you're looking for marriage material. This is what married couples actually do, is you collaborate, you meet with one another, you establish what your skills are, and you try to help each other grow, and you build a kingdom, a life, and a family together. That's what good men, good couples do. And you have to understand that, because a lot of women are confused because they think that because the man has money, that he's taking care of the finances, that he won't duck and run when the next responsibility rolls around. And that's why so many women, despite all other indicators of commitment and marriage and all that other jazz, get left in the cold. That's because they didn't choose men who were investing in them, men who knew them. They just chose men who could own them for a while. And that's something that women today need to avoid. And the only way to avoid it is to understand how men really are and who they really are. And despite how unsexy it is, there is a romantic, necessary component that protects women with those awkward and embarrassing phases of dating where the man is intimidated by you. I'm here to tell you that despite the severe lack of sexiness in it, it's a good thing. That fear serves a purpose. That judgmental representation serves a purpose, and it's not a bad purpose. It's petrifying. It can be petrifying, certainly. But the deal is, it's put there in men so that when they choose a woman, they understand what they're going for. Now, I'm not telling you to be perfect and live up to that expectation, but you have to understand that he, as a man, knows that this is a two-way street. He wants to be worthy of this image. And to find a good man, you have to find the kind of man who's willing to put himself through the torment of being worthy of that image. And that, ladies, in short, and in my very awkward and mind-jumbling ways, is how to find a good guy. That's what a good guy is. So, take this advice for what it is. I hope that the fan who requested this is satisfied with this explanation. And as always, guys, stay carnal. Bye.